Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Five Stripes tonight. My name is Sydney Hunt. Normally, you see me every Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the Dirty South Soccer Facebook and YouTube channels. This time around, the United States men's national team starts the octagonal this week. They take on El Salvador on Thursday, Canada on Sunday at Nissan Stadium in Nashville, and then next Wednesday they take on Honduras in San Pedro Sula. So a lot of games in a little bit of time this month. Of course, this is just the beginning. 14 matches in all for the United States men's national team. 7 at home, 7 away, as you know. And obviously, excitement is high for this team. It's a very young roster. There's a lot of players that are looking to make their mark on the international stage. And thinking back to last time, of course, with the previous cycle, the priority is getting back to the World Cup next year in Qatar. So tough task ahead for the United States. Again, it begins on Thursday. Bart Keeler is from the Soccer For Us podcast. Donald Wine is from the American Outlaws. You've seen him at U.S. men's national and women's national teams, I'm sure. And, of course, on television broadcasts whenever they come on. And then Jonathan Slape, he is joining us from Nashville. He is the president of the American Outlaws Nashville chapter. He also writes for Broadway Sports, as well as hosts a podcast up there called PodCAF, I think we're pronouncing that correctly, with Donald Wide. Like I said, it's a very compressed schedule, a lot of games in a short amount of time. Of course, starting with El Salvador on Thursday. All 3 of you will be in Nashville, right? All 3 of you will be at Nissan Stadium?
That's correct. I'm excited to get up there, and it'll be my second time to Nissan Stadium this summer. So got to go up there for the Atlanta United game, and now going up for the U.S. soccer game. It's the 3rd time I think I've been to Nashville for a U.S. game. So it's a great venue for U.S. soccer, even though they could probably come a little further south and get a better crowd.
You're talking about Atlanta, right?
Yes.
Just for those inside Atlanta. Well, we'll see.
Avoid Florida at all costs. That's a general good rule of thumb.
We'll see what U.S. soccer comes up with, maybe in January or something like that. We can't predict and know they're thinking, but they sort of seem to avoid Atlanta over the past few years, but that's another topic for another day. Let's start with Jonathan. Jonathan, you live in Nashville. I mean, you live and breathe the soccer scene up there. What's your excitement level seeing not just the United States coming to Nashville, but for a match against a CONCACAF rival and for World Cup qualifying at that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since we've had a World Cup qualifier here in Nashville.
Sure.
It actually predates the American Outlaws chapter here. So the last time we saw a World Cup qualifier was Josie Altidor's hat trick against Trinidad and Tobago. But I'll say that probably the most excited and the most buzz that I've seen for a U.S. game here in the city. And I think a lot of that has to do with, we've always been a city that has done well with, turnout for games, but now having an MLS team, having more people in the city that have gotten into the sport of soccer. I think that the excitement level is at an all-time high, coupled with the fact that I think the excitement level of this men's national team is the highest that it's been. I mean, I would say even before probably the 2014 World Cup. So, I mean, a lot of excitement, and we're really excited for some things that we have planned for everybody coming up.
Sure. I was at the Gold Cup a few years back, and one of the main things I remember is just extraordinarily hot where I was sitting. That's one of the main things I remember from that, but hopefully the weather will be a little bit cooler. I know it's still officially summer, but with fall approaching, hopefully the weather does cooperate a little. Donald, what are you looking for this cycle?
So I'm looking for us to show and prove. I mean, This is a nice opportunity for these guys. I mean, if you think about it, there's very few guys on this roster who have experienced a World Cup qualifier of any kind. And for them to be able to undertake this, it's starting off on the road in El Salvador and then coming to what will be a great atmosphere in Nashville. I believe they have over 35,000 tickets sold. The AO section is definitely going to be rocking. We have about 3,000 people in that section. So it's going to be live. It's going to be wild, and these guys are going to get a taste. But I think the excitement is stemming from this past summer where we saw them win the Nations League, we saw them win the Gold Cup, and we saw them get a taste of CONCACAF and excel in it. And now we're excited because now they're going to get the real deal. And we're like, well, these guys can handle it.
Yep. Bart, what about you?
Yeah, to Donald's point, I think I'm most excited to just see how this young group of players are able to perform at this, insane level. It's been a great summer of success, but at the end of the day, all of that doesn't matter anything if you don't qualify for the World Cup. I mean, you remember back in 2017, Bruce Arena led the team to a Gold Cup title that summer, and a couple months later, we're crying in our beer because of not being able to get a result in Trinidad and Tobago. So, props to Greg Berhalter for a fantastically successful summer. Every player on this roster, except for one, was a part of one of those trophies. That's great. The exposure to CONCACAF is great, but ultimately, this is about who has. I think for me, that's going to be about who has the most depth and who has the most talent on the field at any given time, because ultimately, you're going to need talent to give yourself the best chance to find those moments of brilliance, because that's what CONCACAF is all about. It's not about everything going according to plan. It's about what happens when things break down, and it takes an individual moment of brilliance to get a result.
I think you were there that night, Adam Rira. By the way, R.I.P. Rira, Atlanta, Rira Irish Pub, the former Atlanta American Outlaws headquarters for those who are new to the program. But it's just, I can't forget, the looks on, people's faces.
It was so incredulous that night, because I don't think we even realized that it was one thing to lose. It was another thing to lose out on a World Cup. Especially being in American Outlaws, having made plans. A lot of people from the Atlanta chapter went to Russia. I mean, they still went to Russia. We represented really well in Russia, but just to see that entire vision of what we had hoped for summer 2018 crumble at our feet because of terrible coaching decisions and some players who thankfully aren't on this team anymore and aren't going to be a part of this program and still get booed when they come to Atlanta, deservedly so.
Name names. Never mind. Just kidding.
If you were in Atlanta when Toronto came to town, we know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
No, look, that was, I think, two things. One, that is a reality and it happened, and it needs to stay in the back of these players' minds that you do need to fight and work for every single point that you get in CONCACAF, because they don't come easily. But also, let's not pretend like this is some it was a freak accident where it was a cyclone inside of an earthquake, inside of a volcano eruption of just bad things that happened to the U.S. on that night. Not only failing to get a point in Trinidad, but to have Honduras and Panama have results go in their way that should not have gone in their way, goals scored that weren't actually goals, which isn't going to get remedied this time. CONCACAF still doesn't want VAR, even though it worked so perfectly for the TV audience this summer. I don't know why they don't want to stick with it, but that's not a discussion for now. But it sometimes things can be apocalyptic, but sometimes they're just a blip on the radar. And hopefully, 2018 was just a blip, and now we have a brighter future to look forward to.
I figured Michael Bradley would come up during this discussion, but
we'll talk about him anymore.
All right, we'll leave the past in the past. Let's go game by game and roster by roster, starting with, of course, El Salvador on Thursday. In San Salvador, that's of course coached by Hugo Perez, former U.S. Men's International. Jonathan, I'll start with you. Taking a look at El Salvador's roster, who stands out to you? I mean, there's several names that are familiar to MLS fans, but who stands out to you?
I mean, I think that looking at Alex Rodon, I mean,
sure.
it's definitely one. Rivas from FC Tulsa as well. It's another guy that I would keep an eye on who's had a good start to his season. I think he has 5 goals and 6 appearances. So, but yeah, no, I those are the guys that I'm really looking at. And I think probably what I'm looking at most with this roster is from the El Salvador side is, there seem to be a team in transition with some young guys. So I think they're kind of going through the same thing that the U.S. is with some guys that don't have a lot of CONCACAF experience. But just looking at how specifically Greg Berhalter manages the 3 games in a window, which is something that we've never seen before in World Cup qualifying.
Right. Donald, what about you? Who stands out to you?
I mean, honestly, it's the entire team. Hugo Perez has that team clicking. Like if you saw during the Gold Cup, even when they were losing, they were not giving up. That game against Qatar, where they eventually lost, they were clicking on all cylinders and they were fighting the entire time. So I'm looking for that, and especially them being in their in their building,
Sure.
In their gym, so to speak. They haven't been in the final round of World Cup qualifying since the 2010 cycle. And they want to show that they can, be a team that's going to claw and be that gnat in your ear that's annoying and make sure that you guys are on your game. So I think this is a perfect first test for our guys, because they're walking into a road game. We traditionally do not play well on the road. So this will hopefully show people and these guys that the road to the World Cup is never easy. It's not straight paved. It's curvy, it's windy, it's full of gravel and cobblestones along the way, and you're going to have some slip-ups. We can expect to win that game, but we can also expect that to be a grinded-out affair where we're going to struggle at times. And so we have to be prepared for all of that, but know that this journey is long, and we're just at the beginning of it. We want to get off to a good start, but this is going to be an interesting test for us.
Bart, who sticks out to you for El Salvador?
So I was going to also say Joaquin Rivas, because he showed really well in the Gold Cup. But I really think that the person who stands out most is Hugo Perez, because the coach for this El Salvador team, you look at their roster, you look at their talent, and I got to be honest, no one on the team is really that awesome, right? Like we talked about Rivas, FC Tulsa, that's great, but that's a USL championship level squad, Are their best players MLS players? They've got a guy who plays in the Dutch second division. So comparing that to what the United States has on paper, and it is paper, it can get wet, it can go up in flames, but on paper, the squads don't match up. But where these two teams find their equality is in the coaching, because Hugo Perez has this team playing in a very aggressive, proactive manner. And they're not afraid. And I think that's the scary thing for the U.S. is that you're playing an El Salvador team that's not afraid to go toe-to-toe with them. But I actually think that's the benefit for the U.S. because if it were reversed and you were playing Honduras first, we know what Honduras is going to do. They're going to sit in their blocks of, 2 blocks of 4, maybe 2 blocks of 5. Who knows? They're going to sit and just try to absorb pressure and then find their moments to attack. That's not a great way to get into rhythm before facing a Canada team that's also probably going to go against you. I think this is actually a pretty decent first matchup because El Salvador is going to come to play, and that can help the United States because there's going to be pockets to find transition moments. There's going to be times where you're going to actually have to defend. So it'll probably be a better test, but a good test where, it's one of those that you actually get warmed up for the rest of the cycle. So it's trial by fire, but I kind of would prefer to play a team that actually wants to play soccer as opposed to a Honduras team, which is like, well, here, the grass is 4 feet tall. There might be a cow on it, and we're going to just put a bus in front of goal and, hope you can break it down.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be definitely going to be an instance where, I think this El Salvador team is going to come at the U.S. and I think that's going to suit. I think that's going to suit the U.S. I think that having a team that's going to play a little bit more on the front foot instead of sitting back and bunkering, and you got to figure that this El Salvador team sees this as they're probably not expecting much out of this, and so they're going to give it everything they have to just give it a go, and really, maybe try to catch the U.S. out, and they just got to be ready for that.
That's a note on that Honduras game. Since we were talking about it, I want to know who the stretcher people are, because the stretcher people the stretcher. Well, I don't know. They could be guys in this match, but the stretcher girls in the semifinal of the Nations League were the MVPs of the entire tournament. And poor girls, they probably ran 8 miles. Their heat map was off the charts. So I'm looking to see who's going to start for them on the stretcher on the 8th, because that's going to be the difference. They're the ones that are going to try and grind this game out, and if it's 0-0 for them, they won't care.
Yeah, definitely interesting observation. We'll have to take a look at that. By the way, a couple of names that jump off the page at me. For me, obviously Roldan, brother of Cristiano Roldan, declared for El Salvador, of course. So that's something that really sticks out to me. Eric Zavaleta, this will be, I think, his first go-around in World Cup qualifying. Of course, a name MLS fans are familiar with from TFC. And then Doran Soren, which is a big loss for El Salvador. He, of course, got hurt against Minnesota United. And then Houston has other issues, that they're working through. So really, Soren's at this point probably the least of their worries. I mean, they could ill afford to lose anyone else at this point, the way they're going. But Soren injured on Saturday, and apparently he is doubtful to play against the United States in El Salvador. But I think for me, Roldan really sticks out. Let's see what he does. And Jonathan, I think you brought up a good point about I can't forget what you were talking about, but it was in relation to the tactics overall, the tactics that Hugo Perez, who really knows the tendencies of the American side, having played for the U.S. in the past. I think that really plays in the the Salvadorians' favor. So we'll definitely be taking a look at that. But also knowing that, a lot of these guys, they play in second, third division. Rivas, we mentioned, second division player, Josh Perez, second division player, Valmer Martinez. It could go on the list, down the list, domestically and internationally. But yes, I mean, should the United States win this match? Yes. Will it be easy? Absolutely not. Even though United States are 18-1-5 against El Salvador. But Bart, as you were talking about, nothing's written in stone. Nothing's easy. And Donald, you mentioned it too. Nothing's easy. So
yeah, I do think though we've never lost in El Salvador in qualifying, which, hey, that's a nice positive. I would rather this team go out and try to win every road game, because I know the old mantra was win at home, tie on the road, and that's great, but that got us in trouble in 2018. There were multiple matches that we should have gone and tried to win. We should have tried to beat Panama, and we should have tried to beat Honduras on the road, and we didn't. We tried to play for a draw against Trinidad and Tobago, and we ended up losing. If you go and, because we have 14 matches, and this window specifically, you have 2 road matches. Instead of playing for a draw in both, and okay, great, you get 2 points, that would be fantastic, right? That's if you execute your plan perfectly. Yeah. What if you go and beat El Salvador or beat Honduras on the road because you go and try to win? You might not win the second game. That's okay. That's 6 points if you win at home, as opposed to 5 points if you just play for the draw. I think I'd rather take the gamble and go get wins on the road, and that means that El Salvador or Honduras aren't getting 3 points at home. And it means now that you've got 6 points in the bank going into another window in October where you actually have 2 home games. So I think we need to – I know I'm not Greg Berhalter. He's probably not listening to me. But if I were him, I would want to play for wins, because I think trying to play for draws makes no sense when you have so many matches to try to win points. If you have 7 road matches, that's cool. 7 points would be great. But that might not be enough to really get you into a top spot in CONCACAF. And, you got to finish top 3. You don't want to be in that 4th spot. I think you got to pick up wins on the road.
Yeah. I remember
Greg Berhalter's not doing that. He's going for wins. Yeah. If you've seen this entire summer, there's not a single game that we have been in where he's like, let's just go out and kick the ball around and we'll be okay. He's going for wins. And I think what we'll see is squad rotation. We'll see that quite a bit. Maybe not with the goalkeepers. That's going to be an interesting thing we talk about probably in a little bit. But the rest of the field is going to be like, all these guys are in this roster. They're all playing. Like every one of them, outfield players, they're all going to see some time. And he's going to field teams that he wants to, that he thinks can win, not that he thinks he's going to draw. So I think that's the exciting part too, is we're going to see these guys go for wins. We're not going to see, our team pull out our own buses and try to park them.
Yep. And Jonathan, I remember what you were talking about earlier, and we'll kind of switch gears to talk about Canada. You were mentioning that El Salvador probably don't expect too much from this match, so they really have nothing to lose. Their chances of making the World Cup are very slim, especially in a region that includes the United States, and includes Canada, Mexico, Mexico, a team that certainly expect to be there, Jamaica, a team that you expect to be in it, probably. Costa Rica, a team that you certainly expect to be in it. So, this is a side that has nothing to lose at this point. So, they too will be going for the win. They too will be looking to hold court at home, like Donald said, and really make things interesting for the United States moving to that match on Sunday against Canada. Let's talk about Canada. Switching gears, talking about the Canadian men's national team. And when you look at this roster, there's a lot, especially in this forward group, there's a lot of young players, 20, 21, 22. And then there are, of course, that veterans on that roster. But, there's a lot of youth and a lot of players like El Salvador that haven't been in this cycle, in this experience. And one player, obviously, that stands out to me is Alphonso Davies, number 1. don't know how much he'll play. I would think he'll see a decent amount of time, especially in that second match. So we'll have to talk about him. And of course, Tajon Buchanan, another young player at 22 who has really done well in MLS. It really has really helped New England Revolution get to where they need to be. But I mean, this will be an incredibly tough match. This isn't your grandfather's Canadian soccer team, so to speak. So, Donald, I'll start with you. What are you kind of expecting from Canada?
They want to prove that they are one of the best teams in CONCACAF. I mean, that's what they've been doing this entire time. They've been building this squad up to the point where they can go out and say, hey, Canada is here. We are not going anywhere. And all the talk about us, not making the hex or whatever it was going to be before this, we're here to stay. So, we saw that in the group stage. They didn't even have Jonathan David or Alphonso Davies in the Gold Cup, and they still really took it to us and made it where we had to really defend all the time. That's what these guys can do. They're going to go at you. Kyle Larin is a Grizzly veteran. He's 26. Mark Anthony Kaye, a Grizzly veteran. He's 26. Alphonso Davies is 20. Jonathan David's 21. Tajon Buchanan's 22.
Yep.
What the hell, man? This is what we were. Alistair Johnson is one of their best defenders. He's 23. They have a lot of guys who are going to be here, and they're going to want to prove that Canada is back on the face of CONCACAF, and they're ready to take names. So that is why this is an intriguing matchup. We get them at home. We've played them well at home, but they're going to come at us, and it's going to be one of those deals where we have to establish early that, okay, it's cool. You can be third, but we're number one, and we have to walk out there and prove that we're the 10th best country in the world, because they're going to try and they're going to test us from the opening jump, and those guys are ready for it.
Let's talk about Alistair Johnson. Jonathan, you've obviously seen a lot of him, being a Nashville SC fan. What does a player like him bring to the table?
Well, I think what Alistair Johnston plays at the national team is a little bit different than what he plays for Nashville SC. So at Nashville SC, he's primarily playing as a right back or a right wing back. But what we've seen him do a lot for Canada is playing as that third center back on the right hand side in a a 3-back set. He's got a great range of passing, and he's very mobile and can be aggressive. So I think when he plays back a bit in that center back position, he offers a lot of, from a mobility standpoint, and ability to close down attacks, and then adds that extra bit of passing out of the back. So it'll be interesting to see, being able to see him up against this U.S. team and seeing how he compares with that. But I mean, there's a lot to see from this Canada team, like Donald was talking about, and I think that I kind of think that they're the third best team in CONCACAF, probably replacing Costa Rica, at least on paper. But I think this first 3 matches is going to get an idea of how do they perform with the pressures on, because they've really kind of been performing with the pressure off through some of these early World Cup qualifying matches, because they maybe weren't coming up against the strongest of opponents, but now that they're going to be up against the best of CONCACAF, it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle that pressure.
Yeah, so I'm going to dig at a lot of arguments that people have been making for Canada by using the same things that they've been saying against the United States. So one, people are concerned about the youth and inexperience in World Cup qualifying of the United States. Where the hell is Canada's? I mean that sincerely. They have not made it to. I mean, you can talk to me all about, previous rounds. They played the Cayman Islands, y'all. Like, that's where you store offshore money, not play soccer. So, you talk to me about, the U.S. doesn't have the experience. Canada doesn't have experience either, and they have less experience than we do. Now, the benefit that they do have is they have been playing. This group has been playing together a lot because they are not as deep as the United States, but they do have depth. They do have some good talent up front. I wonder where defensively how strong they'll be, because we've seen that they're attacking 4, 5, 6, however many you want to put up there. They're really good, and they have some great depth across the front line. Yeah. But defensively and in goal, I don't think they're as Maxime Crepeau or Borjan. Those are fine goalkeepers, especially at the level that they play for their clubs. But on an international level, that's a whole different ballgame. And I think their defenders can be a little bit I think they've been caught with some intricate passing and some pace, which is the goal of the United States attack, right? You're going to move the ball and try to get these defenders moving and find space behind them. So I think that when you look at Canada, they're very similar to the United States. They're younger, their core is young, even their veterans are still under 30. And that's awesome. I'm very happy that Canada is here to try to actually be a competitor in CONCACAF. But every argument you say, oh, well, Canada's X, it's like, you say that that's a bad thing for the U.S. So which one is it? And I just, I think they're pretty good mirrors of each other, but I think the United States has a little bit more rigidity in the back, and I think that we have a little bit more experience when it comes to actually being a top dog, and I think that'll be what makes a difference in this match. I also think that honestly that matchup between Dest and Davies, if they're paired up on the same wing, will be just really fun to watch. I don't know if I'll be able to keep great eyes on it because I'll probably at that point be 7 hours into drinking that day. So don't come to me for analysis after. I mean, I'm planning to wake up late after the night before. So let's see if the match starts at 7, starting at noon. Yeah, okay, so 10 hours of drinking in at that point in time. I'm kidding. I'm not that guy, but point is, it'll be a fun matchup to watch. The Dest and Davies matchup will be fun. Sure. And then, I think that's where, honestly, I think a guy like Miles Robinson or Walker Zimmerman, whoever's paired with John Brooks in that matchup, having to handle a little bit of Kyle Larin will be interesting. How do they handle if David and Larin pair up with each other? How do they combat the fact that you're going to have a great pace on the wings? Is this where we see a 3-back from Greg Berhalter? I think this will be the only match that you really see Berhalter adjust a lot to the opponent, because I think it's the only opponent that gives us something that we actually do need to tactically prepare for very specifically, as opposed to just saying, hey, we're going to play our game best.
Canada has a really huge problem. And here's the problem, and this is the biggest question surrounding their team. Alphonso Davies is one of the top 10 players in CONCACAF. I think that's a given.
Yep.
There was a point last year where people considered him one of the top 3 left backs on the planet, but he doesn't play left back for Canada. He plays wing. He plays left wing, and sometimes even plays striker like the 9. So the problem is, if you put him up in the front, there's a hole in the back behind him. If you put him in the back, there's a hole on the wing in front of him. Where do they play him? And the thing is, wherever they play him, at least for us, when we have Serginho Dest right back versus left back, the drop off is not nearly as severe as Alphonso Davies at left wing versus Alphonso Davies at left back, because whoever is behind him on that depth chart is not one of the top 3 in the world, is not one of the top 10 in CONCACAF. And their depth is not, as Bart said, is not nearly as good as ours. So when that happens, that is going to be the hole that I want to see Greg Berhalter find a way to exploit, because we have guys. Christian Pulisic gets hurt or injured or has COVID or whatever. Brendan Aaronson's coming on. He's like, okay, well, the drop-off is not as great. So that hole is going to be there wherever that is, and I want to see if they are able to exploit that.
Yeah, I was looking at the roster, and the most capped player for Canada, as you all saw, probably is Atiba Hutchinson with 85 caps. Below that is Sam Piette from Montreal with 57 caps. So, yeah, that that experience isn't as much present as it is with the United States. There are a lot of guys with single-digit caps, 10, 15, 20 caps. So I think that certainly works to the United States' favor. But at the same time, this is by no stretch of the imagination the gimme. And Canada will definitely be out to prove that, as you guys were saying, they belong in that discussion as top 3 teams in CONCACAF. So that should be a really, really intriguing match in Nashville with really a vibrant crowd, in the city, like Jonathan was saying, has really embraced the game over this past few years, especially with Nashville SC entering MLS and opening that soccer-specific stadium in next year, I believe. Next year, that should be on track to open. Let's turn the page. Let's talk about Honduras, which is going to be another tough match away down at San Pedro Sula. Honduras, Bart, you kind of mentioned, and I'll start with you on this. They have a really unique playing style that has the potential to really cause the United States fits.
Yeah, I hate to call it a bunker because that's really disingenuous to teams that bunker. That they're defensive first and they're trying to absorb pressure, but I kind of liken them to the Black Panther's suit, right? Where he's going to try to absorb shot after shot, and then the goal is for him to be able to rebound with more force and absorb all that. That's kind of their approach to how they play. The problem is they're missing Albert Elise this window, and that's the guy who historically is going to be hurting teams. Now, they still have a guy like Romel Kyoto who's pretty quick and can get up behind teams, but I'm concerned for Honduras that they may not have the ability to strike on the counterattack like they normally do. That said, they still have some pace. They still have the ability to spring from defense to attack very quickly. And they have some pretty decent players when they get on the ball. And if they do have possession, they're able to create a little bit. But it's not a bunker. I hate to call it a bunker because they are looking to attack. It's just they're not always looking to – they're looking to attack in a way that is so reflective. It's not a build out of the back as much as it is, okay, and we have the ball and we go. And, they'll clear balls until they find their opportunity to really attack.
Mm-hmm. Donald, what are you feeling about Honduras? What kind of challenges are you looking at that, they may pose?
Well, they are, just like you said, they're going to pack it a little bit, but they're also going to try and find those holes to try and counter. They have some guys that are fast. Andy Nahar, my boy here from DC United, is back on the roster. He's, lightning fast. He's going to want to try and nutmeg some people on the way down the field. But with him and a couple other guys, they can flow out. The issue, the one thing that may play to the advantage of the United States is traditionally Honduras likes to schedule this match in the mid-afternoon when it's like 100 degrees and like 90% humidity. This game is at 8 o'clock local time. The sun will be down, the humidity will be down, the temperature will be down, and it's a reduced capacity crowd. Because they are restricting capacity, as is El Salvador. So those are going to play to our advantage because our guys are not going to have to worry about gassing out in the middle of the afternoon. It's still going to be plenty hot, but it won't be nearly. It's going to be like a 15-degree difference, and the rain will be gone. So all of that will be cleared out. This will be a great opportunity for our guys, especially the guys on the bench that have been brought for this depth. They're going to be able to get 90 minutes of full, use all of their energy in this match because Honduras is going to just try and sit there and absorb all this pressure. Let's just give it to them and pick our chances where we can go ahead and just find those holes and exploit them. Jonathan?
Yeah, and looking at the roster, I mean, there's still a lot of the guys that, mainstays of this team, like your Figueroas and your Boniat Garcias, that most U.S. fans are going to recognize. But I think they are going to have to cope with the absence and phasing out of guys like Roger Espinoza, who's anchored that midfield for so long. And yeah, like Donald said, I think the big thing is with this game of it not being hot. We all remember the infamous game of Timmy Chandler just melting in the sun during the last round of World Cup qualifying. And I think from a U.S. perspective, it's going to be really interesting to see how Greg uses his roster here. Is this going to be a situation where he's going to load up these first two games and say, let's get 6 points from these first two, and then when it comes to the third game, let's rotate a little bit, try to get a chance to some of these guys, because I think we're going to see every outfield player, like Donald said, is going to get minutes. So as much as I am not a fan of, and others are not a fan of, a guy like Tim Ream's gonna start a game.
Don't put this into existence.
It's happening.
It's happening. It's happening. I'm gonna hate it, and it's probably gonna be this game. And I think we all just got to realize that, this is gonna bite me in the ass now that I've put this out in the world.
So we got a non-Tim Ream fan, and then we got a non-Michael Bradley fan. So Donald, is there a player you're not a fan of that you don't want to see on the field?
Hey, no, all these guys, this is the thing, they all are brought for different things. I may not like Tim Ream when he sucks, but I don't like any player when they suck on the field. And I think we're all in agreement with that. So, but the thing is, I do think we're going to see rotations. The question is, do we see Serginho Dest on the left or the right? Do we see, Anthony Robinson play, extended minutes? Tim Ream, does he play at left back in one of these games instead of center back? Because we've seen that as well. I'd rather him be a center back where he is excelling than at left back where I know he can't. So like those sort of things are really the question, not necessarily personnel and who they brought in. All these guys I think can do the job.
Well, let's talk about the roster now. Talk about, the United States roster, Ed. Of course, we can go on and on about the youth and the promising capabilities that these players have, more so than probably what's been present in past years for this squad. One player that I've been thinking about personally is Gio Reyna. Gio seems like, I saw a video and it's talking about what a competitive spirit Gio kind of has, and I'm sure that stems from his father and his mother being both U.S. national team players. But I feel like Gio has the tendency to get inside his own head sometimes. I don't know if you guys agree. You see how he carries his stuff on the field, some of the frustration that he shows on the field. I mean, which I'm not saying it's negative, but I just feel like he's a kid that can really get inside his own head if he's not careful. I really like his game. I really like what he brings to the table. He has this kind of fearlessness about him, this kind of attitude, this edge, I think, again, stemming from, I would say, his parents, being national team players. But he seems like that kind of kid that will, if he's not careful, he can kind of get into his own head. So he's a player that I'm kind of taking a look at. I think that he'll do well. I think that he can't get down on himself if things don't go his way immediately. So I don't know if there's a player that you guys are taking a look at, have really zeroed in on for this particular roster with, I don't want to say a lot to prove, but someone that you're looking to really see assert themselves, not just in this particular cycle, but throughout this entire qualifying session.
Well, I think for me,
go ahead, Bart.
I want to see more of Miles Robinson because I thought he had a really great Gold Cup, and he was probably a shining star on the U.S. team that was a B team at the very best, and again, playing against opponents that most of whom we'll see in this octagonal. You've got Canada, you've got Jamaica, Qatar is a similar level opponent, and then Mexico. So he did really well in the Gold Cup. This is again another level of intensity. I'm excited to see if he can continue to raise his game, because he seems to be able to raise his game to the level of the players around him. It's been something that we've seen for a while here in Atlanta United. And, maybe in the back of his mind, he's thinking about a winter transfer. I wouldn't hate if, Atlanta United sells him over the winter and we're getting a couple, $5 to $7, maybe $10 million for him because he showed out well in qualifying. But I think he has a lot to prove. And he's a guy that we need to prove a lot, because someone's going to have to partner John Brooks. Someone might have to give John Brooks a rest. And I hope it's not Tim Ream. I hope it would be Miles Robinson. So, he's going to be vital when it comes to squad rotation, because not everyone can play all 90 minutes of 3 matches. I'm not good at 270 minutes. That's a lot of minutes to play in a window. So he's going to be vital to giving some center back rotation. And depending on Berhalter playing in a 2-back or a 3-back, he has that versatility to play in that as well. So I think he's a very key component to whatever Greg Berhalter wants to do, both personnel-wise and tactically.
Donald?
So for me, I think the one guy I want to look at is Conrad De La Fuente. He's not with Barca anymore, so I can like him full-throatedly on his club team. But honestly, like, in all seriousness, when he transferred to Marseille, he's broken through already. We're 3 weeks into the season there in Ligue 1, and he's been stellar for them. And for a team that's trying to get back to the top, 2 or 3 in France. So that is only going to help his confidence. And I want to see that parlay into the national team. We've seen flashes of that at certain points. But flashes is all we've seen, because he hasn't had a lot of time on the field. So I think this is the opportunity for him to kind of show, hey, I can be a guy you can count on every single window. Don't worry about, I don't have to start. I don't have to, play me where you want to play me, but I'll excel in it. And he's been doing really well for Marseille. I think that is the confidence that we need for these guys to bring into camp. So I'm looking forward to seeing if he can keep that momentum going.
And if you've watched Marseille, you know that Conrad is CONCACAF ready.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
I am so excited for Conrad though. Like I am excited for a true winger, not a guy who kind of cuts. He is a winger who's going to get up and down that flank and beat guys, and I'm excited. Like it's like
his
some mix
map
of like
one side of the field.
Yeah,
it's a straight one side of the field.
Yeah, it's a little Kobe Jones's, but like I'm here for that, right? Like let's go, man.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be a boots on the chalk kind of guy that's just going to be out there on the touchline. I mean, I think for me, a homer pick and a non-homer pick is I am interested to see Walker Zimmerman with this team. Yeah. We did see, I mean, him and Miles Robinson together during the Gold Cup when he was healthy. They played really well with each other and off of each other. And I think that, really seeing Zimmerman get hurt in that Canada game, I was worried that was really going to seal his chances of making a octagonal roster, but I mean he's gonna get that opportunity, and I think also up front, Jordan Pefok is the other guy that I'm looking at. I think that the striker position has been the one that is, I would say, probably is the weakest in the U.S. pool, and he's the only guy right now that's scoring goals. I mean, I think he has 3 or 4 already through the beginning of the season, and is contributing and starting games. So I think that he's the guy that personally I would start in the beginning couple games, but I do think that it's going to be interesting to see how he's deployed, especially with alongside the guys like Pulisic and Reyna and the other guys behind him.
Right. Let's and we'll kind of wrap it up here in a second, but I got a question from Sam Minton from the Bent Musket SB Nation's Revolution blog. And I feel like it's a little bit of a cheeky question, but I'll ask it anyway. So it's in relation to the goalkeeping slot, and you guys know where I'm going already. So let's ask it. Matt Turner, where does he belong, and what's the gap between number 2 and number 1 between him and Zach Steffen right now?
I think for me, that is the biggest question entering this camp, and it's exciting because for me, we have 3 guys who I feel 100% confident that if they're between the sticks, we're going to be okay. I think Zach Steffen starts this first game. I think despite what Turner did during the Gold Cup, which was magical, I don't think Zach Steffen has played his way out of a starting spot yet.
Right.
I also don't think it's unfair for Ethan Horvath. He's a hero. Yeah. He's a Mexican hero. Like he beat Mexico by himself. Like that sort of thing, right? So you have that as well, and then you have Matt Turner, who literally has just gone gangbusters for the last 2 months. He has allowed like 1 goal. He allowed 1 goal during the Gold Cup. He's out like 1 or 2 goals so far since he's been back for the Revolution, and he single-handedly won the All-Star game. So like all 3 of these guys have their resume that they can lay in front of Greg Berhalter and say, I deserve to start. And honestly, any one of them could start, and I feel very happy about it. I don't think Matt Turner is the number 1 yet, but I reserve the right to be wrong on Thursday.
Right.
That's kind of where I fall. I think that Turner is really good, and I think is nipping on the heels of the number 1 spot. But I still think Zach Steffen is Berhalter's guy with there, and that's not a knock on Horvath saying that he's third in the conversation. I just think that coming into camp, and we'll see, like Donald said throughout this, I think Steffen's the number 1. I wouldn't be surprised to see Turner stake a claim. Maybe he gets that game. I don't think all 3 goalkeepers will play, but I do think that he has put himself in the conversation and is playing. You couldn't ask him to do anything else differently.
Bart?
Yeah. So, goalkeepers. Okay. So this is the problem with the goalkeepers we have is all 3 of them are really good at certain things. And all 3 of them excel at things that others aren't as good at. Like Matt Turner is probably the best shot stopper of the 3. I don't think that's an argument, right? But goalkeeping is so much more than just blocking shots, right? And honestly, if you're the United States, the goal is to not have the goalkeeper save as much as we've had to have our goalkeepers be called on in the past. So I think the issue that I have with Turner starting is that I don't trust him with the ball at his feet at all. it was very apparent during the Gold Cup. He's a little uncomfortable with the ball at his feet. When we have to go back and play it to him, he oftentimes doesn't do a great job of taking a good first touch to set up his next pass. He takes too long to distribute the ball. But I also have a similar issues with Stefan, where Stefan sometimes is a little too casual on the ball or is not hitting the diagonals the way he needs to. Horvath, I think, is probably better at that than the others, but he has some deficiencies as well. That said, to what Donald and Jonathan both said, I don't distrust any of them. But the question is, who does Greg Berhalter trust the most? Because ultimately your goalkeeper needs to be the guy that you absolutely have faith in. Like, let's take Ederson, who's in front of Stefan, for example, at Man City. He has had a couple of, weird things with his feet, but Pep trusts him. Pep trusts him to not only make the saves, but to be fairly reliable with the ball at his feet and facilitate possession out of the back. And I think at the end of the day, Berhalter trusts Stefan the most. Stefan has been pretty darn good for the U.S. I don't think he's been spectacular. But again, I could say that Matt Turner, outside of some great saves, the best example I can give you, sorry, I'm getting way too deep into goalkeeper talk. This is my jam. The best example I can give you is, we all remember that save he had in the Qatar match, the first half, where like the ball kind of bounced into 18, got really close, and like they just got a touch on it, and he made a great reaction save. Right, fantastic save. That's a great reaction save. But as a goalkeeper, why did you not come claim that ball? And that's something that's keeping him from Europe. I'm telling you that everyone said, why isn't he in Europe? Because he doesn't command his box in the air well enough. And that's something that he's going to have to be good at in CONCACAF with a lot of teams sitting diagonals into the box or crossing balls in. It's as much as we say the 10 o'clock start is going to be nice, or 9 o'clock local start is going to be nice for us, it's going to rain all day in both El Salvador and Honduras in the weeks leading up to it. Looking at the forecast. So, shot stopping is great. It's not always about just stopping shots. You have to be in command of not only your box, but also the guys in front of you. And I think Berhalter trusts Stefan to do that better than anyone else. Even though Stefan's had some gaffes in his career at the U.S., I still think he trusts Stefan more.
Yep. No, I agree.
I would start Horvath, but that's me.
We'll see what Greg Berhalter thinks. See if he. I don't know if he's watching, but if he does, I hope that he'll definitely take a lot of your suggestions to heart.
Greg, come to Tailgate Brewing on Saturday night. There you go. You're watching.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to. We talked about this young group of talent for a while. Now it's time to watch them work, watch them see what they have in store for us, and it all begins on Thursday night. Jonathan, Donald, and Bart, it has been a pleasure to have you all on, and let's talk again soon. That does it for us. My name is Sidney Hunt. Glad you can join me this time around. Hope to see you next night for another edition of 5 Stripes Tonight. So long, everyone.